I'm surprised by my reaction to this book. I think that when Killing Commendator came out, I thought, well, that's it, like Murakami's lost his touch, which would have been normal because he's very old by now. He's very old. I think some of us thought that Killing Commendator was going to be his last book. So, in other words, I wasn't expecting this book to come out. And then when I heard the news that it was coming out, I didn't expect it to be good. He actually remarks on this in his own afterword, which is that he believes, I think he said that like Ernest Hemingway or somebody said this, he believes that everyone only has a set number of stories that they can tell in their lifetime. And I think that what he means when he references Hemingway is that if you can only produce one novel a year, then you've only got 80 novels in you. But I think that he might also have been saying, or the way that I took this was, you basically have a narrative about your life. You have a fictionalized mythology about your own life, and every single story that you write is just a spin on that one fictional mythology that you've built up. And people criticize Murakami for this, but I don't think that they should, because I think that it's just that, we are consumed by some central questions. Like Brandon Sanderson is consumed with questions of honor and what happens when people break that honor, and the redemption of people, the redemption that's possible for people who have broken their honor. And that's fine. That's fine that he's consumed with this question and that it keeps on occurring over and over in all of his Stormlight Archive books. I don't know if it occurs in his other books because I haven't really read them, except for Mistborn, and I forgot what was in it. But it's okay for an author to just riff on one central theme. I get that that's not the same as reusing the same characters and the same plot line. But I think that what other people call repetitiveness is fine. I think it's fine. Anyway, I wasn't expecting much out of this book. Normally with books, I devour them as soon as they come out. And for this one, it was midnight on December 19th, but I still didn't pick it up and read it. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna wait until I'm in the mood to read this book. Because the thing about Murakami's books is that, they're not compelling in the sense that, if you pick up one page, you feel like you have to finish the book right now. They're sort of quieter. They're more about a vibe. But this book was actually the most honest and the most affecting book that I've read of his so far. And I've read every single book he's ever published, starting from when I was 12 years old with Kafka on the Shore. So that's been 16 years of me reading Murakami. And this book just felt honest in a way that, his other books felt very polished. But whenever somebody polishes their books, there's some level of artifice going on. And Hard-Boiled Wonderland is an example of a book where there was a lot of artifice. And it was done really well, but it was done in the style of hard-boiled detective fiction. Meaning that he had a message, and then he carefully gift wrapped that message in the tropes of this genre. So he created a work of art that could be evaluated against the usual bullet points that work of art was supposed to hit. And with this book, it did not feel that way at all. Hard-Boiled Wonderland felt like two perfect halves fitting together seamlessly. But that level of artifice that was required to get it there meant that some of the ideas Murakami had that did not fit neatly into that prescribed box could not get into the book. And so what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that there's a lot of ambiguity in this book that he leaves unresolved. in ways that were not left unresolved in Hard-Boiled Wonderland. I mean, Hard-Boiled Wonderland is not, it's not necessarily easy to grasp, but I do think that you could think your way through all of the plot threads, as in, oh, hey, yeah, like I could guess based on symmetry that this is what is supposed to happen. And there's not a lot of symmetry in this book. There are some parts that are just left hanging forever. And it's left hanging in a way that feels really real. Like, for instance, like did that meeting at the very end of the book where he walks up the river and he becomes younger and he's, 17 again and the girl is 16, and then all of a sudden the girl says we're both shadows. Did that meeting really happen? Or did it not happen? And is it important whether it happens or not? I think one of the best moments for me in this book was when the Yellow Submarine Boy, when he sees the Yellow Submarine Boy, he sees his cast-off husk in that dilapidated cabin in the middle of the forest. It is a scene that could have been really eerie and creepy, but it's somehow not. Like, it has elements of being eerie, but it's not actually meant to, send a shiver down your spine. And like this is what I'm saying, right? Because if Murakami wanted his book to have that spooky feeling, he absolutely could have amped it up and made it actually feel very, very spooky. Like in the scene in Dance 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 when the main narrator is has a baseball bat and he's ready to club in the head of somebody else. Or the scene on Kafka on the Shore where the creepy guy is playing a flute made with dead cat skins. He could have really went all in on the creepy atmosphere, but he didn't. He just left it he left it in a way where it could be ominous if you read it like that, but it also doesn't have to be ominous. And that's really cool. But that was absolutely one of the best scenes in the book. It was just it was so weird and bizarre, but it didn't feel like it was weird and bizarre to provoke an emotion. It felt like it was just weird and bizarre because his mind is weird and bizarre. And it was really cool to get that closure with what happened to the Yellow Submarine Boy. And it was really cool that the narrator got to have that closure too. And I think that was one of the first, maybe one of the only concrete manifestations of the shadow world and the real world colliding. So that was cool. I was hoping for more concrete manifestations like that. And then at the end of the book, we did get one, which was the Yellow Submarine's, husk left in the real world. The ending was really weird about him biting the ears of the protagonist. I think it's cool that for once he decided to, feature a young boy that, that the protagonist is tutoring or mentoring. And I think that obviously in the past, there has been these scenes that are, weirdly infused with sexual tension with very young girls in his books. And I'm not going to talk a lot about that, but I will say that it's refreshing to see him mentor, because we all know that the protagonists are just a stand-in for Murakami. It's refreshing to see Murakami mentor a young boy without any of that tension. And I guess it reminds me a lot about that recent Studio Ghibli film, The Boy and the Crane, or How to Live, where it's an old guy reflecting on his life, and for some reason, every time old men reflect on their lives, they do it in fictional form with a young boy with which they pass on their insights to. And so, like, that's cool. And, like, but to me, like, it also reminds me that, like, Murakami's getting really old now. So it's kind of sad, but, like, it's cool at the same time. Oh yeah, one other thing that I forgot to mention is that the book that feels the most similar to this is Norwegian Wood because of how close he's finally gotten his magical realism to the real world. Like, he's gotten that layer. He's narrowed down the difference to the point where they're almost indistinguishable. And so that, like, instead of saying like magical realism, maybe we should say magical naturalism. That kind of magical naturalism is something that we saw the most in Norwegian Wood. But the way that this book is different from Norwegian Wood is that Norwegian Wood, like, stabbed you through the heart. Like, I feel like maybe Murakami was going through some real pain when he wrote that book, and that book caused some real pain in me. And, like, but here, there is nothing like that. Like, there's no suicide. There's no, double suicide. Here, it's a very optimistic book. And, like, when I was 16, I wrote an essay that talked about my parents' divorce. And when I got it back, my English professor had written, I feel like right now, because you're in the middle of it, you can't talk about it clearly. And, like, I believe that maybe Murakami was, like, in the middle of processing some grief similar to the one that the protagonist experienced when he was writing Norwegian Wood. And now at this old age, he's no longer in the midst of his grief. And so the read is easier. The read is much easier, I think.